What's going on, guys? It's your boy CMB, back in the building, back with another video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Now, let's get into this really quickly, guys. We're talking about Manny Pacquiao and Errol Spence Jr. Now, you guys know Manny Pacquiao has been looking for his next fight. It's supposed to be a legacy fight, and he says an announcement is coming soon who is going to be. Now, there's been a lot of speculation out there who it will be. We've heard Ryan Garcia. We've heard Terrence Crawford, which I did a video about on this channel. We've heard even Mikey Garcia. And we've heard, Errol Spence Jr. name is still being thrown out there as well. Now, I want to talk about what Manny Pacquiao's strength and conditioning coach, Justin Fortune, I'm hoping I'm pronouncing his name right, had to say about Manny facing off against Spence. So I'm going to grab my laptop, guys. And it says, trainer confident Pacquiao would overcome Spence in style. So I'm going to read some of his quotes here from his strength and conditioning coach. Okay, so they're pretty lengthy, so bear with me, guys. So his first quote is, Spence is a great fighter and a good champion, but he's not the same guy that he was before. Not at all. We saw that when he fought Danny Garcia. Everyone raves about how hard Spence punches. Well, Danny Garcia came through 12 rounds. Danny Garcia also never pulled the trigger that night, or else Danny would probably have beaten him. I think Fortune told the Sun. Now, let's tackle this quote. He says he's not the same guy at all. I wasn't sure if Errol was going to be the same guy when he went into that fight either. But, I went to the fight. And, he looked sharp for someone who had a car accident and was off for a long period of time. He was in excellent physical shape. He was a lot faster than Danny. Danny had trouble countering Spence all night. So I thought Spence looked good in that fight. He might have had a little ring rust, but that's, being off that long, that's understandable. But I thought he looked sharp in that fight. Now, he says that Danny never pulled the trigger that night, and Danny would have beaten him. The way I saw Danny, he just couldn't hit Spence. So I don't think Danny would have beaten Spence. Spence was just too much a complete of a fighter in the ring that night for Danny. He just couldn't get it going. And looking at Danny Garcia's face after the fight, it was evident to me that he took a beating in that fight. Even though Spence didn't drop him, he took a hell of a beating. Spence's jab was just on point. So that part I disagree with. Now I'm going to read some more quotes here. He says, you put Spence in there with someone like Pacquiao now, Pacquiao obliterates him, even a 42-year-old. He's still the number guy, and he has been the champion for the last 18 years. That in itself is a phenomenal effing feat as an athlete in the sport. Now, here's the thing. I hear a lot of people who, I would say, Spence fans, they say that Spence would obliterate Manny Pacquiao because he's the bigger, younger guy. And I've said this on my channel a lot. Even though I love Errol Spence Jr., Manny Pacquiao is not your average 40-year-old. I know it sounds like I'm beating a dead horse, but he's not. It's evident. If you look at, some of the clips that were released, I think it was about a week ago, he's still fast. And you don't lose your power just because you're in your 40s. And he takes care of himself. So that, I don't know if Pacquiao obliterates Errol Spence Jr., but I'm going to say this is, it's not going to be an easy fight for Errol Spence Jr. And he could possibly lose that fight. It's not a done deal. I know a lot of people would think, Errol's the bigger guy. He's just going to go over there and roll over Manny Pacquiao. But, Keith Thurman thought the same thing. And Keith Thurman has better footwork Then Errol Spence Jr., and you see what happened to him. He was dropped. I think it was the first round of the fight. So you got to look at things like that. Okay, now the last quote he said here. He said, "You want to give Spence 2 or 3 fights to get his shit back together." Sorry, guys, to get his shit back together. That's for sure. Manny's too fast and too strong. He uses too many angles. We don't know how Spence will pull through. His comeback fight with Danny Garcia wasn't impressive at all. I'm so glad he survived the crash, but that does a lot of damage to your head and body. He came out of a Lamborghini or whatever. It was at 120 miles per hour. Thank God he's not dead, but the ligament damage, hand damage is long term. It doesn't go away overnight. So I'm no doctor, guys. I don't know about the ligament or hand damage. Uh, Giving Spence 2 or 3 more fights. I really don't think Spence needs 2 or 3 more fights to get it back together. But that's just my assessment from the performance that I saw he put on with Danny Garcia. Like I said, I was there at the fight that night, and I thought he looked phenomenal. I know a lot of people thought he didn't look like the same fighter, but he looked sharp to me. Just maybe a little bit of ring rust, but that's understandable. Like I said, I think this would be a very competitive fight. Like I've always said, I think it's a 50-50 fight. I think people are selling Manny Pacquiao short because he's 40 years old. Every 40-year-old is not the same, especially if you're living a clean fighter lifestyle. So, that's what he had to say about Errol Spence Jr. and Manny Pacquiao facing off. So maybe this means we'll get this fight. Even with Manny Pacquiao not being he's the WBA super champion in recess. It would still be a hell of a fight, and if he could win that fight, he would have 2 titles, and who knows, maybe fight Terrence Crawford after that. We'll just have to wait and see, guys. So, tell me what you guys think about what Manny Pacquiao's strength and conditioning coach had to say about Errol Spence Jr. and Manny Pacquiao facing off in the comment section, guys. It's the CMB. I'll talk to you guys in the next one, and I'm out. Peace.